This is Dr. Anita, and thank you again for being with me. In the past few episodes, we've been talking about changing and challenging our past in order to have a powerful future. We talked about the fact that sometimes we are not paying attention to our role in a situation. Sometimes we have attributed all of the fault on the other person and not taken into consideration at all our own actions, our perceptions, the way that we have moved in a particular situation, whether or not we have been willing to identify maybe our weaknesses, and therefore we continue experiencing the same thing over and over and over again. There does come a point in life where maybe as a young person, we could say, well, I was totally innocent and I didn't understand what was taking place. And yes, I was victimized. And because I hadn't come to a point of understanding my role or what happened, I have acted in a particular way. That may be one scenario. But on the other hand, there is a time when we are expected as adults, as mature individuals, to begin to process those occurrences in life, that we take an active role in correcting these situations in our lives. I've seen some things over the years that have been really interesting to me. Ways that people are taking advantage of. And I talked about that in the episode where we talked about greed, and I did 2 episodes on that. If you haven't listened to them, please do. You know, sometimes you can put a title on an episode and people will look at it or maybe perceive it as though this is a negative, when in fact it's an absolute positive, because we sometimes have to be able to see ourselves in a mirror to understand how we look, okay? And I said in those 2 particular episodes that we have to look at both sides of the coin. Are you the person who has been victimized by someone who is greedy, or are you the greedy person who goes about victimizing? And in both of those situations, it requires self-evaluation to be able to change that situation. If you're the person who has been victimized, then you have to look at why. Are you able to be victimized because you refuse to look at the reality that I have to do something about this? I have to be responsible for protecting myself. We see this frequently in the sports world, where a particular athlete, or in the entertainment industry where an entertainer has made an enormous amount of money and left it to someone else to look after that money. And that someone else fell on the other side of that coin. They were greedy and they embezzled, they stole, they did this, that, and the other. And now the person who actually earned the money has nothing. And the other person, depending on how smart they were or skilled at thievery, robbery that they were, they may have gotten away with it. So what can you do? You start out by, number 1, taking responsibility for yourself. Yes, you can give someone authority to act on your behalf, but you can't give them that authority and never go back and look at it again because you don't like math and they do. So they just have all of the ability to handle your accounts and you never look at them. You never call for an accounting. You never have anything audited. You just trust that they're doing what they're supposed to do. Those situations can lead you directly into disaster. It can lead you directly into what you didn't want. I'm saying that in terms of this whole concept of greed, of taking something that didn't belong to you. And the person who is injured, as well as the person who momentarily seems to have benefited from that situation. I want to turn it into another area now. I want us to look at people that tried to maybe advise us, and we didn't want to be advised. We didn't want to look at what they had to say. And then we come to that place where exactly what we were told could take place has taken place. And we're left at a spot where we're more than vulnerable. We, at this point, have been victimized. That's where I wouldn't advise being self-determined to the point where you won't listen to allow you to go, because it's much harder coming back from that type of situation than it is to listen to maybe someone who has some wisdom that could have helped you to not experience this in the first place. And then there are times, part of this I talked about in greed in the other episode, where there is nothing that you can do about it because this person has stolen at a point where you were so utterly vulnerable that you never again in this life would have the opportunity to straighten things out. So how do things get this bad? How does it get to this point? And I would say being self-willed to the degree that you refuse to listen. I say that expression all the time, throwing out the baby with the bathwater, taking what was good, lumping it into one bundle, and then throwing out everything. There's sometimes that people in our lives are really trying to look out for us. And because we're not ready to listen to that advice, we get rid of the person. Not only do we get rid of the person, we get rid of everybody surrounding that person, just in case the person reaches out through them. We have to be careful about that. We have to be careful about that because there does come a point in life where those type of decisions cannot be undone. You cannot unring a bell. So in those situations, we have to be very, very sure that that is the stance that we want to take. Because once again, it does get to a point where we're not able to go back. We're not able to make a clarifying decision. We're not able to examine a challenging relationship. We're not able to do any of that anymore because now it's too late. And sometimes it's not too late because of the other person. It's too late because of us. It's too late to fix it because something has happened to us, and it may be that our lives have ended. Sit in the driver's seat of your life. You drive your car. But in driving your car, you also have to realize that there are signs along the roadway, signs that allow us to avoid disaster, signs that let us know when the bridge is out, or there's traffic, or there's a signal, or you need to stop, or you need to yield, or you need to be aware that something is taking place, that there's a cattle crossing. All of these warning signs are there to protect us. And if we fail to look at the warnings, then we end up with the outcome that we end up with. Be sure that we're not overlooking the warnings so that we can have our own way. Be sure that we're not so determined in where we are in that stance that we refuse the instruction of the warning signs of the passenger who's sitting in the other seat with you, of the driving teacher who tried to explain why these things are important to recognize. We cannot afford sometimes to overlook the warnings that have been positioned in front of us just so we can have our own way. Sometimes being able to take advantage of what others see, even when it's difficult, even when we may not be able to readily see a way out, I would still encourage you to try. Sometimes we can be under doctor's orders and we decide that we know more than the medical professional. And because we know more than the medical professional, or because we don't want to do it because it would take some effort on our behalf, we choose to remain in the same behavior that we ended up going to the doctor for in the first place. And when we decide that we're not going to change that behavior, then you get what you get. You get the outcome of that. I work in an area in which I hear about people's diagnoses. I hear about people say, well, they diagnosed me as being pre-diabetic. I've seen this where you had a warning. You got the sign that there's danger up ahead. And instead of heeding the warning, you just continued doing what you were doing, thinking of it, well, I'm not diabetic yet, so I can continue eating all this sugar and doing all of this and not paying attention to my exercise, my diet, or any of the things that the doctor's talking to me about. I'm not diabetic yet, so I can keep doing it. Instead of changing your perception and saying, instead of me walking towards the cliff, this is my opportunity to turn and walk away from the cliff and never become diabetic. Does food mean more than your life? Do you live to eat, or do you eat to live? Those are decisions that have to be made. If I realize that I am not able to move well, my body isn't functioning in mobility the way that it did, do I continue sitting in the chair because I'm stiff? Or do I get out of the chair and move because I'm stiff? Those are the changes in perception. Is this that I'm feeling a warning that says you're in danger, but if you stop now, you can turn things around? Or this sign that says I can keep doing it a little bit longer because I'm not there yet. These are situations that we all have to face in life. This is a part of the human condition. Do I look at that diagnosis as negative and therefore I'm never going to look at it again? Or do I take that diagnosis as a positive sign that there is a way for me to turn around and go the other direction? These are the things that we have to look at. These are the issues in life that when we look back at them and evaluate the decision that we made, we're able to see how to make a different decision in the future. They're not negative, but in order to attract to yourself what you want, you have to go back and evaluate the decisions you've made in the past, make a change, determine how you want to live in the future, and then move forward in that future decision. Please, as you go back over the episodes that we've done in the past, modify your perception, because you don't have to go over the cliff when you see a sign. You can use that sign, turn around, and go a different direction.
Thank you for listening, and join me next time as we redefine the previous steps of your process. Never forget, becoming is a process. A process has stages. One small change changes everything. So invest in yourself. Please visit my website at www.DrAnitaMc.com. That's DrAnitaMc.com for links and additional information. And please rate the podcast if you're enjoying it.